what they found was that with a Girl and Gun chapter at a range, at a retail center or host range, that women were more likely to purchase guns there at the gun counter, that it wasn't a transactional sale, just a one and done. They knew that they would be supported with training after the firearm purchase. So that closed the sale 100% of the time. So when training is offered in connection with that firearm, then you know that you're not alone in purchasing it. There's going to be somebody who's qualified and caring to guide you that next step to make sure that you can use it safely and proficiently. And so just knowing that that path is laid out for you and that community is there for you, it makes it a lot less intimidating.
Yeah, that's really fascinating what you just shared about. I mean, it makes sense to me just hearing it, but the fact that you have some data backing it up, that's got to be a pretty good sales pitch, I would say, for particularly a range that has a retail center as part of it that does gun sales. Like, hey, like you want to have a chapter at your range because we're going to sell guns for you, basically.
You would think so, Riley, but unfortunately that's not the case. Changing hearts and minds is really hard. And so you wouldn't believe the objections and obstacles that we have to overcome to have chapters in different places. Yeah. Everything from, when it's girls' night out, the parking lot's too full. And so, that's a problem.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, right? That's my response too. Or, I know that there's, 30 women who have all paid full range fees to be in here, but now there's not any room for real customers to come in.
For real customers?
Yeah.
Ooh.
These are conversations I have every week across the country, trying to make it less of an outreach mission and more of a financial decision for these ranges, to understand that, yes, we want women to come in. We want it to be approachable. We want women and families to protect themselves. But at the end of the day, it just makes good business sense too.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating to me. And it's fascinating because I'm probably more of a data-driven kind of person than maybe some people are. I know how it can be for some of those smaller operations, stores, ranges, whatnot. And in some cases they've been doing things the same way for decades. And they like you were just talking about, like they're comfortable with what they do, with what they know. Like, we've been doing this for however long. This is the way we do things, and like it seems to work. And so like it's scary to then change something up, as kind of what I'm hearing based on what you just shared there. But at the same time, like I think that every range or store probably would like to still sell more, or else why are we in business?
You would think so. You would think so. It's very complex though when you push them out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. I also suspect, I describe it as kind of the old guard. There's just sort of there's still this mentality, I think, in a lot of parts of the industry of, we got to protect the status quo, whether the people are intentionally thinking of it like that or not, it's beside the point. But just sort of like, this is the way it's always been, and this is the way we like it, and we got to keep it that way. And heaven forbid we fill that parking lot up.
Right. I think that a lot of times, though, that old guard is very protective because they've seen their rights and friends chipped away at. Yep. And so they have this like hard line in the sand, and letting people in can be very scary. Trying to find any kind of middle ground for a new community to broaden the tent, as Akil and Tiffany talk about. But just to make a more diverse clientele for them can be very intimidating. Again, it's just different. Yeah. And so while you look at dollars and cents, it makes really great sense. But if you look at the history of being afraid of outsiders coming in and getting more middle ground than we were comfortable with and chipping away at the things that we hold sacred, I understand the wall there. And I let them know that we're 100% on their side and all the benefits of supporting a women's group like ours.
Yeah. Besides the data, are there any anecdotal kind of success stories that you are able to share? Like, it could be anything, just a story or two or three here and there of various women or chapters or stores or ranges that, you're like, hey, this is notable, and maybe you'd like to highlight.
Oh gosh, there's so many stories, hundreds of stories of women who have reached out and said that a girl in a gun has changed their lives. And, I always remind them that a girl in a gun didn't change your life. You changed it. We just gave you the pathway and the support along the way. But there's just so many stories. I've seen women who, um, we have leaders now, chapter leaders that are instructors that are teaching private lessons and thriving in their personal instructor business, that 5 years ago had one of them had never left her county ever, her
Oh,
entire life. She's 50, had never left her county, didn't know there was a bigger world out there. And now she comes to conference, she comes to drift, she comes to all of our events. She's in it to win it, and is recognized that, getting past, a lot of times we hold ourselves back. And now I see her living her best life and traveling and having new memories and inspiring others around her to grow. It's just a lot of times women, especially who want to focus on their families, and it's really hard for them to shine. It's really hard for them to give themselves permission to kind of live bigger and greater. And I'm just so fortunate I get to see that all the time. There was one woman who came to an event where we had some shotgun. It was tactical shotgun. It was kind of an intro to 3-gun, but we focused on shotgun. And she'd never shot a shotgun before. And so she found she was actually pretty good at it. And she was actually really good at it. And she went home, and she was the Girl Scout troop for her daughters. And she was going through a really horrible divorce, and it was really low self-esteem. And she took her whole Girl Scout troop bowling. And she said that she had never gotten up and bowled before. She let the girls do it. She just kind of stayed in the shadows. And she said, but you know what? I learned that day I was a pretty good bowler too. She got up there, and she's living her life and trying new things, and not afraid of failing and not afraid of looking silly, just tired of sitting on the sidelines. And I see that time after time. And what's so inspiring about that is not only did she change her life and enhance her life and live better and live more, but she just inspired this whole generation of little girls looking at her to not sit in the shadows either, that they don't need to worry about what they're wearing or if they're good at something, that just to expect you're going to be terrible. It's your first time and it's okay. But that price of entry is embarrassment sometimes, to get out there and shoot your first match when you think in your mind you're going so blazing fast, but you're actually really, really slow. It's just, that's the cost of entry, is being willing to just try it.
that still happens even to me, where I'll review a match video and I'm like, man, why am I still so slow?
Every time I'll look at the stands and be like, wow, I thought I was way faster than him.
Yep. That's really cool. I appreciate you sharing that. That there's lives being changed by getting involved in doing what we're here to talk about today. I have certainly been I want to call it a partaker of the blessings of what you're describing, because there's a significant positive energy that I've witnessed at your events. I mean, by that, I mean attending the national conference, teaching there a couple of times. And first of all, there's always just a bunch of smiling faces. Like there's never a frown that I can recall. Uh, and everyone is so excited to learn, like so excited to be there. And I know that for some instructors too, this is, if they're exposed to that for the first time, especially, and maybe they come from a background in military or law enforcement training. While I don't have the heaviest background in law enforcement training, I've done a little bit of that in my past. And you're used to being in a room or on a range with, guys where this is their job, guys and gals, but a lot of guys mostly, obviously. And, and they're just told, hey, you got to go to this training course. Okay. And maybe don't want to be there. They'd rather be at home, fishing or, going camping, or they'd even rather just be on the job, chasing bad guys rather than being in yet another training course. And so it's just so refreshing to be surrounded by students that really, really, really want to be there and want whatever it is that you can deliver. And that's a really cool thing. And so it's very apparent to me that everything you're describing is, I mean, it's not just talk. It's not, it's really, you're changing lives and enriching lives. And that exudes in the people, that like you see it. So I'm just, I guess, testifying to that myself.
I'm grateful that you would notice that, because that is all on purpose.